Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. And joining us for this episode is an old friend and also a previous guest for also a bonus episode, as well as the weekly podcast show. So be sure to check him out. That's Marc Löffler. Hey, Marc, welcome to the show.
Hi, Vasco. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy that Marc is wearing a great headset and has a great microphone with him, because that does make a difference. I have to say that the audience thanks you, Marc, for having a great headset and a great mic. These days, we're all at home, so I guess that's kind of par for the course already, no?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's also part of this. Yeah, already.
So Marc is a super, and when I mean super, I'm understating it, super active member of the Agile community. In his spare time from consulting, speaking, and training, he's found time to start a blog, a podcast, and write 2 books. Oh my God. And today's topic is another project that Marc has started recently. Marc feels strongly about and is committed to the Scrum Master Journey. And that's actually the topic we talk about today. For those of you that want to know more, this is a series of 3 episodes. Today is the first episode, but you can find the link to the other episodes in the show notes. But Marc, let's intro the topic first to our audience. What is it that you talk about when you describe and work with Scrum Masters on their Scrum Master journey?
Yeah, so what I found out in the past years is that the Scrum Master is, for me, is a whole job. It's like should really go to school for getting to become a Scrum Master. And most of the time, all you got is 2 days Scrum Master training, sometimes 3 days, right? Certification training. And then you're sitting with your team and yeah, now what? So lots of things are maybe not as you learned it in the training, and you get stuck. You don't know how to move forward. And so the Scrum Master journey is about really making yourself the first steps and getting on the way, how to improve as a Scrum Master and learning on this path and really improving over time. And this is where I come in, helping Scrum Masters with mentoring, with a Scrum Master journey. And with my book, which is out in German now. I hope to get the book out in English too, maybe next year. Yeah, how to become a better Scrum Master.
I definitely sympathize with the idea that being a Scrum Master is something that you need to prepare for, something that you need to learn through practice and, of course, also through support, community support, training, and so on. I've done many projects, not the least of which, of course, this podcast itself, around helping Scrum Masters go beyond the 2-day CSM course. Now, I'm not dissing on the 2-day CSM course. I think it has a place. It's a little bit like the driver's license, right? Like everybody should go to that training that gets you the driver's license.
It's a kickoff, right?
Yeah, it's the kickoff. That's a good way to put it. I would definitely not hire a taxi driver that doesn't have a driver's license.
Yes.
But you're probably not going to start hiring Formula One drivers or NASCAR drivers from people who just completed their driver's license and never drove before, right? Like that's a very good point. And maybe we can dive into why that is. In your mind, Marc, what's missing? Like, what's the many things or a few things, or what are the important things that we're missing when we've just completed the CSM course, but we have no further training?
Yeah, I think it's like you just said, it's a little bit like a driver's license in the US, right? You just go there, then you get your driver's license if you just pass the test, and then you're on the road. And that's what's happening to Scrum Master, right? You're on the road, and then it's a lot more difficult than most people think it is. For example, when we talk about self-organization, I have a metaphor I'm using quite often, and it's the goldfish metaphor. So lots of employees are like a little goldfish in the goldfish glass. So the organization puts them in a goldfish glass. You don't have much room to decide something, to get active. There are lots of processes that tell you what you have to do in what steps and so on and so on. And then this company decides, let's go for Agile, for Scrum, whatsoever. and then grabs the goldfish and throws it into the Agile ocean. And then they're wondering, why is this goldfish not swimming anymore? Why is he dying because of hunger? Why is maybe getting eaten by bigger fish? And that's one of the problems we have, right? Self-organization is not just happening like that when you just pull out a goldfish from the goldfish glass, right? That doesn't work. And even worse, if these goldfishes swim for too long in the goldfish glass, they will become the goldfish zombie, right? People that enter the company putting their brain into some shelf, right? And then entering the company, just doing what is described in some mindless processes. And even if they feel it doesn't work for me, they're still doing it because if I don't follow the process, I get a lot of problems with my boss, for example. Or if we ran into the wall, I can always say, yeah, we ran into the wall, but I did what is written down in the process. So it's not my fault, right? And to getting people out from the zombie role and goldfish role into self-organization is quite a challenge.
When I think about it, I can only imagine when I got started. That was way back in 2004 when I ran the first Scrum project as a Scrum Master. And back then, we had very little else than the 3 questions and the time boxes. I mean, those were already pretty big challenges back then. I mean, don't get me wrong. Getting a waterfall team to do a time box was quite a big challenge. And no wonder we had 4-week sprints at that time, because even 4-week sprints were hard to do when you had your system testing team somewhere on the other side of the planet. Right.
Yes.
So obviously we have to acknowledge that a lot has changed. I mean, today we talk about sociocracy, holacracy, radical candor, different flavors of leadership. I mean, so many things have changed. And I would say that also for Scrum Masters, expecting them to be good Scrum Masters by just knowing Scrum, which is most of the content in the 2-day course, I think that's not a fair expectation anymore. What do you think?
No, it's not. And especially when you think about maybe back 10, 15 years, companies who started Agile were companies who really wanted to become Agile. And what we see now a lot of time is that we see a lot of Me Too Agile companies. So I want to be Agile too, but I don't want to change, right? And this is a big, big challenge. And maybe 20 years ago, it was a lot easier. Maybe less companies were Agile, but these companies were really into, yes, this is really believe it. We have the mindset and so on. And now the challenge is much bigger for Scrum Masters working with Me Too companies and getting them to understand what is really behind Agile, the mindset. Still, the Agile Manifesto, for me, of course, it's 20 years old, I think, but it's still one of the things I'm always going back, right? Because still a lot of things in the Agile Manifesto are true and important.
Yeah, absolutely. The Agile Manifesto is a great example of how Agile and Scrum have evolved, because when we look at the Agile Manifesto today, we see things we didn't see before, obviously, because we have the benefit of hindsight and we have 20 plus years of evolution in this field.
Yes.
One of the things that I think about when it comes to this growing as a Scrum Master is also the fact that our industry is growing, right? Like the software and product development industry is quite different today than it was back then. Like today, when you hire people, their expectation is that they go into an Agile team.
Yes.
20 years ago, when you hired people, they would be surprised to be put in an Agile team. So also the expectation is quite different for Scrum Masters and towards Scrum Masters, right? Now, Scrum Masters have different expectations, but the companies that hire them also have different expectations. And one of the things that I'm afraid of, and that's one of the things we try to talk about here on the podcast all the time, is that we put people into the Scrum Master role, and then we either expect them to do waterfall with the Scrum words, or we expect them to work in an organization that is doing sociocracy or holacracy or some other developed complexity-driven and complexity-based, social complexity-based framework, and people don't know what those are.
Yes.
So how do we tackle these two extremes, right? Because I'm sure that, so Marc's been doing the Scrum Master Journey for a while now with his students in Germany, but now he's publishing this to the English-speaking world. How have you seen these two extremes in your students?
I think so. The first steps always is to find out what is the culture I'm in at the moment, to really read the current culture, to understand the current culture, to see, okay, where do I fit with my values, for example. I think that's also something that lots of Scrum Masters forget. They forget about themselves, about their own values. How do they fit to the values of the company? Yeah, and therefore it's also important to understand in what culture I'm in this company, and what do I have to change maybe, or we have to change so that Agile can really live in this environment. And yeah, I think that's two steps that are not easy, take a lot of time, but are really important if you want to have an Agile environment that really stays. And it's not after 2 days or half a year, it's just completely broken and nobody wants to do Scrum again.
Yeah, self-organization is a big topic for us as Scrum Masters. And actually, Marc's been generous enough to record with us a whole episode on two of the main challenges that his students have come to him with. How the culture an organization work, how to change the culture of an organization is one of those key challenges. And the self-organization aspect is also one of those key challenges. Can you tell us a bit more about what are the concrete problems, the difficulties, the obstacles, and the lacks of knowledge that your Scrum Master students come to you with when it comes to self-organization?
Yeah, one of the problems is, I think, also a misunderstanding of the Scrum Master role. So in lots of companies, my Scrum Masters struggle that they are handled like an assistant, right? So please do this for me, do that for me. And more or less the Scrum Master is the only who's responsible for the Scrum process and that Scrum is working. And we are just doing our job. You're the Scrum Master, just do your thing. And if we have problems, then you have to take care of that. So the whole self-organization thing is just projected on the Scrum Master and not projected on the whole team. And this is a challenge lots of Scrum Masters have. And one of the reasons why this is happening is that the Scrum Master role got watered down a lot in the past years.
Well, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that what you can see a lot is that you still have companies where Scrum Master is just an additional role of what you're currently doing. Like I see a lot of managers doing Scrum Masters as additional jobs. I see still developers doing Scrum Master as an additional job.
So like a side job for somebody.
Like a side job, right. Or I see companies who, this is the new guy. He just entered the company. Come on, let's be the Scrum Master because we need somebody doing the Scrum Master who has no experience. And the effect is that you don't see any effect of a great Scrum Master because it's a side job. You won't get a big effect, or you have unexperienced people in the Scrum Master role, so you don't see any effects. And undermines that this really strongly suggests that the Scrum Master is not that important. It's just somebody who can take care of our Scrum meetings and moderate the Scrum meetings, and that's it more or less. And this is something you can do maybe in 2 weeks or 2 hours a week. So why do we need a Scrum Master? So the whole Scrum Master roles in lots of companies is just completely misunderstood.
Absolutely. As we were preparing for this episode with Marc, we talked about some of the biggest challenges, and just to remind ourselves the two key challenges that he just mentioned. So the first one is how the culture and organization works, how to change the culture and organization, and also how to get the teams to reach self-organization. And we have a special episode that will be coming out shortly if you're listening to this when this episode goes live. And of course, if they have already gone live, you will see the link on the show notes to find that episode where he gives us a tutorial on how to tackle these two problems, reaching self-organization with your team and how to change culture in an organization. But there was a bonus challenge that we talked about, which is one that I feel very strongly about, and one of the reasons why I started this podcast in itself. What is that, Marc?
That's I think what is missing a lot of time for lots of Scrum Masters in companies is they feel quite lonely in their role. They don't have anybody sometimes in their own company to talk to because they are the only Scrum Master responsible for 5 teams. Such things are still happening, right? And so nobody really to go to talk to ask questions and stuff like that. So I think one of the big bonuses of the Scrum Master Journey is you have a community. So in the German community, we have a Slack channel. You can go there, ask your questions. There's always somebody who has an answer for you. There's always somebody who maybe has 50 minutes time for a short call or something like that. And the thing is, these people are in the same situation than you. So you don't have to explain them what's your role, what you're doing, and what's your problem, because they understand what's your role and what's your problem because they're in the same shoes, right? And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of having such a community in place. And you can really get insights. And so we meet every year. We had a great still with Corona, November, we had a meetup with about 15 people. So it was a small one because of Corona. But this was also great, right? This was more or less like an open space for 2 days. We had lots of topics. We had lots of cool ideas. We developed a vision for the Scrum Master Journey for the future. And it was just a blast.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the strengths of finding your own community, right? Like, is that at that point, you're no longer alone.
Right.
You feel that your desire and thirst for learning and growing as a Scrum Master is recognized by the people around you. And of course, you have that support network. Tell us some stories of the students that you've worked with. What are some of the things that have happened over the previous editions of the Scrum Master Journey?
3 people were just switching jobs because they found out through the Scrum Master Journey that they're in the wrong place, right? They had the values were not fitting to the company. They really felt that we can do a better job somewhere else where they really need us and really want to use Scrum Masters how they are meant to, right? One is now starting in March, a new job. The other one started in January, a job. So lots of people in during the Scrum Master Journey find out who they are really are, what they want to be as a Scrum Master. And in the same way, they find out maybe it's the wrong place I'm in currently, right? So and I'm always proud if I see that companies who are not worth of having great Scrum Masters just lose them, right? And I don't know who said it in the past, so my hope is that bad companies are dying because the good people are going. So that's the thing I believe. And the great companies will get great people, great Scrum Master, and will thrive and grow. And for me, it's one of the successes. I get a big smile on my face if I hear another story of somebody switching because of the Scrum Master Journey.
So in this Scrum Master Journey, we've talked about community. Of course, we talked about peer support, but there's also self-paced learning, Q&A sessions. What are the key advantages for Scrum Masters, just like the ones you described, that want to take it to the next level, that want to really dive into that role and become great Scrum Masters? What can they expect from this Scrum Master Journey that you've put together?
Yeah, what you can see is that the people who are investing time and money in such a Scrum Master Journey, if you want to go on a different job interview, for example, people really see, this is somebody who is developing, this is somebody who invests in his own Scrum Master Journey, this is somebody who wants to grow. These are the kind of people we need in this company, right? So that's why I think it's a lot easier for these people to switch and get better jobs because of this journey. It's one of the advantages. And the second advantage is, it's a way out of the Scrum Master depression a bit. Like maybe you had it also before, and when you had a job as a Scrum Master, you're sitting in this team, in this company, you really feel like nothing is really moving, nothing is changing. I'm trying all these things and I can't move a bit. And maybe you just harvested some low-hanging fruits, but now you feel like you're stuck, right? And the Scrum Master Journey is one way to get unstuck, right? To get new ideas, to really understand why you are stuck and to move on.
So for me, one of the things that you said a moment ago is one of the key aspects that I would be looking for as a Scrum Master, because I've been there, I've gone through that phase, which is to feel confident enough that I can get a job as a Scrum Master anywhere else. And at the moment that we are recording this, early 2022, there's a lot of demand for great Scrum Masters. And of course,
yes,
there's also a lot of demand for goldfish Scrum Masters, to use the metaphor that you were using. But of course, it's up to us as Scrum Masters to figure out the difference between those two, and of course, to move jobs if we need to. So when people join the Scrum Master Journey, they'll of course get, videos, worksheets, and what else is there? Like, what can I expect as a student in the Scrum Master Journey?
Yeah, so there are the components, like you just said. It's lots of videos. I try to make them really short, like between 5 to 50 minutes, so that you always find time to watch a video, right? It's not 2 hour long, whatever, that you don't find time to go there. As every video lesson has a handout where you have your exercises and stuff you can really directly use in your teams or on yourself, which is really, really important. We have a bi-weekly Q&A sessions where we sit together and where we can, maybe if you have a question to one of the lessons, you can ask them either to me or to the others in the room. So we do lots of breakout sessions there. And we will meet. I think the goal is to meet at least twice per year. Maybe we even do local meetups in the future, really the exchange with other people. So we have the Slack channel at the moment where you can go and exchange ideas and stuff like that. So I think there's lots of benefits.
So there's one benefit, though, that I find the most important. We've already talked about the CSM course, and I'm not dissing on the CSM course, but the CSM courses are pretty expensive.
Yes.
I remember way back when, like a long time ago, when I took the CSM course, it was already at that time $2,000+ for a 2-day course. That's not the case with the Scrum Master Journey. Actually, you're making this dirt cheap.
Yeah. It's dirt cheap, but I think it's maybe I have to, now that you say it, maybe I have to do more expensive. Who knows?
And by the way, we will have a special launch price. So if you hear this, please click the link in the show notes, because you're going to get a very special price right off the bat when you join at launch. The price will go up later. So that's an important thing to know.
So we will be below 1,000 euros. This is something I can promise. And the launch price will be maybe even lower.
And don't forget that this is like hands-on support. This is happening all the time. There's Q&A sessions, there's peer support, there's meetups and so on, which is something that you can't get from, of course, a package training like a CSM course. Now, don't forget that in the next episode, and the link will be in the show notes for those listening to this later on, there will be a how-to. We'll talk about how to solve the self-organization problem. There will be some steps, some exercises, some things to read, some things to try, and also how to help culture change and evolve in your organization. So stay tuned for that episode. But to end on a, I think, people-centric note, what are some of the things that your past students have said about going through the Scrum Master Journey?
The fun fact is we had this driver license metaphor now lots of times. And this is exactly what also one of my students said. He said, okay, it's like driver license. Only if you have one, you learn how to drive. And Marc is giving you the driving security training or driving safety training for you as a certified Scrum Master. And it's something that every Scrum Master Agile coach should go into. This was one of the feedback, for example, I got. Another feedback was that, it was awesome to get this booklet, right? Where you have all these exercises and go into and directly use the knowledge you hear in the video in your environment. This was something we got here. And of course, that you can adapt it to your velocity. Well, that was just the right word in English, to your pace, right? You can learn whenever you want. I had people who did the Scrum Master Journey in 4 weeks in the end. I had others who really did it through half a year, right? So you just do it in your pace. And even I had some people said, I start that journey every half a year again from beginning, because I always find something useful again in the Scrum Master Journey. Some short information I missed maybe when I watched the video the first time. And now I found it helpful because exactly it fits to my situation.
And I think that's a great advantage of this self-paced training, because when you read a book or when you watch a video or you listen to a podcast, you don't actually read what the author wrote. You read what you're ready to receive. And as you evolve, you're always going to read different things from the same book. And I think that's a great testimonial for the Scrum Master Journey, right? Like if you want to go back every 6 months and get new information all the time, that means you're growing, and that means that you're getting new value out of this, which is what I also hope is happening with this podcast as people go back and listen to the same questions from different people.
Yeah.
Marc, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you in the next episode. So be sure to check the show notes for the link to the next episode and go and listen to that, where we will have a how-to and lots of examples and tips and tools to solve the key challenges we have as Scrum Master. So, Marc, it's been a pleasure. Tell us, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
About me is on LinkedIn, for example. You will find me easily on, of course, on my homepage, marclöffler.eu. On Twitter, I'm quite active. If you didn't read my book now, Improving Agile Perspectives is one of the books I released some years ago. Yeah, I think these are all the ways how to get in contact with me.
Absolutely. And for those of you who want to get the self-retrospective guide for Scrum Masters, you can go to scrummaster-journey.com or check out our website, scrummastertoolbox.org/SMJ, to get that self-retrospective guide written by Marc, for the Scrum Masters, right? Because we should be running our own retrospectives. Marc, it's been a
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you, Vasco.
All Scrum Masters go through a journey of learning and growth. Marc's extensive experience has given him first-hand practical knowledge of what it is to be a Scrum Master and a mentor to other Scrum Masters. Now you can take advantage of that experience by being part of the Scrum Master Journey program. You can join Marc and the whole Scrum Master Journey community at scrummaster-journey.com. That's Scrum Master, all one word, -journey.com. You can learn and get support in your own Scrum Master journey with Marc Löffler and his community. Join now.